Hello guys, welcome back once again. I got home and decided to check out the news, and this completely blew me away. That the unreleased Super Nintendo PlayStation CD add-on, also known as SNES-CD, prototype console discovered. Now I'm going to say this. Part of me wonders if this is real. And part of me thinks this is real. But to me, it doesn't matter if it is or not. The point that people are talking about this in history that involved this event, which is, by the way, this is a very important event in video game history when you talk about the Super Nintendo CD. When you talk about events that changed gaming, for example, we could talk about Atari and how originally Atari had gotten the rights to bring the NES to the United States because Nintendo was scared to fund it on their own. And they were going to let Atari, just license out somebody else to make it and release it. And that was supposed to be Atari. Imagine how different history would have been today if Atari had released the Nintendo Entertainment System. Well, this is just as an important event in history because this was the weird part of 16-bit gaming that people seem to don't talk about. 16-bit was a weird generation. It started off really great. And this was the generation that, there was systems that try to jump ahead. We had the Turbo F-16 come out. You had like the Atari Jaguar come out. You had like the 3DO come out. Arguably, some of those were and were not next generation systems. But through all that, Nintendo and Sega were still the two main with their 16-bit consoles, unshaken. Their bases were still very, their bases were what they were. That's where gaming was. And we're not going to get into like how weird Sega was, where they made the Sega CD, didn't support it very long, made the 32X, didn't support it very long. Maybe they felt pressure from the other systems that were more powerful. But when Nintendo announced that they were going to it looked like they were going to do a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo, I was excited because the NES had an actual expansion thing on the bottom that they could have done stuff with. They never did, right? And so, to me, it would be cool, like, oh man, you could extend the life of the system, give us a CD, thing to play games, and maybe you could use that CD player to boost, kind of make it tie with the system where it could actually boost, like, the amount of power the system had by RAM and other stuff, and you could get, better games, all around for both the Super Nintendo and the possibly with the CD add-on. They could have done that. I mean, they didn't need a lot back then to boost it. I saw the mock-up, so it was really exciting. Sony was making it with Nintendo. Sony was big in the Walkmans at the time. CD Walkmans were just, everybody had one. It was just the thing, right? Sony was electronic giant. Those two companies come together, kind of like a dream matchup together. There were a lot of rumors at the time that, that maybe there would have been CD versions of Final Fantasy game, maybe a Legend of Zelda. Heck, maybe we could have got a Contra or Street Fighter 2. All kinds of rumors going around. In your mind, you were just ready to go, man, can you imagine what those games look like in CD? Well, Sony was so excited that they were developing this system that 1991 CES, they were actually showing it to people. They were so excited working with Nintendo and making the system. Now, behind the screen doors, what people don't talk about was Nintendo and Sony weren't exactly eye to eye on licensing and all that, those kind of fees that Sony would get from, with Nintendo on that. And I don't think Nintendo liked, how much they wanted to charge for it. And remember, at this time, Nintendo was still king. So they were probably like, why would I want to? We're king, we're doing you a favor kind of thing in video gaming. Well, at least that's what I imagine that went on. Who knows if it actually happened. But that 1991 CS is famous because that was also when Nintendo said, no. We decided Sony's not making our add-on now. Philips is making our add-on. And what's funny is neither one of these came out for the Super Nintendo. This Philips, of course, later became the CDI, which is a system a lot of people talk about the bad games on the system, that there were the Zelda and Mario games that were not very good because Philips got Nintendo license to them. So that's not, that happened. But let's go to the Sony side. Why are the pictures in this prototype important when you talk about history? Is because Sony was so irritated by Nintendo dropping it and irritated that they built this technology they thought was incredible, that the CEO of Sony went and basically, lobbied, in other words, to keep developing the technology, which they did, and that's when they got mad and said, so fine, you don't want to develop it, we're going to become your competition. And that system, through that technology, became what we now know as the PlayStation 1. And have been competing with Nintendo ever since. So, despite the fact these pictures look really cool, the controller has the Sony PlayStation logo on it, the system. I think the thing that catches people is the question is going to be asked, how come the system on top isn't a Super Famicom? How come it's a PlayStation branded system instead? There's a video, by the way, he's posted on YouTube. I have it linked below if you want to watch it. It looks really cool. I think it's real. That yellowing isn't normal for stuff around that era. Again, part of me wants to say it is, part of me does not. But because no one's ever had the prototype, no one's ever seen the prototype. It's never been found. It's ever since that went away, no one's seen the console. It's just never been seen. Since it was shown at CES, after the CES happened, no one's ever seen this console again. According to the kid who founded it, son of a businessman whose father had ties to Nintendo, I guess said that it was sitting in a box that I guess their father meant to get rid of years ago, and he found it. So there you go. Now it's up to you whether you think this is real or not. It doesn't matter in a way. I mean, it's cool what it looks like. It looks very like it could be genuine. Maybe like Nintendo and Sony were going to come out with the Nintendo Sony PlayStation. Maybe that's what we're going to call it. Who knows? But I will tell you that it's good that everybody's talking about the history, because I think that's very important. I think a lot of times, sometimes things that bring up history in gaming is sometimes more important than the actual thing that it is. But anyway, what do you guys think about this? Do you think it's real? You think it's not real? I know I would have loved to buy the CD Addon if it came out for Super Nintendo. The minute it was announced to show in game magazines, I started saving up because I really wanted one for my system. Because the funny thing about Nintendo was that at that time they always seemed to wait till everybody else was done, and then they'd come with their thing that was always better and bigger than everybody else back then. Anyway, guys, love to hear your opinions like always. I'll make another video soon. Later.